Welcome back to the Temple of Tomes with your host, Indie Comics Jones. This is episode 41, July 8th, 2020. It's boiling hot outside, and the weatherman just saying it's going to just keep getting hotter. Well, that's summer for you. Okay, so anyway, hopefully this will cool us off a bit as we look at something from Antarctic Press. They are in their 35th year of publication, and this is a special #1 called Offworld. Now, I'm saying special because it's actually two comics in one, and I don't know if these two comics are going to combine somewhere in the future, but on this side we have Interstellar Dust by C.J. Hudson, drawn by Igor Wolski. We flip it over. On the other side, we have Hazel, and everything's done by Colin Fogel. That's the writing, the pencils, the inks, the coloring, everything by Fogel. Now, what's interesting is the Interstellar Dust comic is kind of like in a European style, I would say. Very much so. A little bit of manga maybe, but mostly kind of reminds me of a European. And on this side, it's more manga style. So it's kind of interesting. Let's go ahead and take a look at, we'll take a look at Hazel first. This one is called Hazel. And what I like about this is obviously it's the art in here is just fantastic. And same with the other story for different reasons. But the coloring is done in a way that shows that in 2050, New York is kind of an overgrown place with lots of smog, fog, all types of things. People are wearing breathing apparatuses just to get by. And you've got the police department out there patrolling around. Now, most of the crime that they mention in here takes place in the Undercity. And that's where this group of crime-fighting policemen go. They get off at a certain spot and they have a hatch opened for them. And they go down. They're in pursuit of illegal mining operations. Now, unfortunately, the story really doesn't get too far into it. It's only a 12-page story on this side. But the art in is just really nice. It introduces the team: Hazel, officer; Swan, team scout; Chloe, team engineer; and Jinx at arms. I'm assuming he's the weapons expert. He seems to be holding some kind of stuffed animal with his big zipper on it, so I can only imagine what might be in there. So what I think is this is just a primer talking about what's going to happen in the future issues, or what's coming out in future issues. It's a continuation. But they go down into the underground in search of these miners that are pulling things out illegally. And they find them. And I guess Hazel is a quick trigger type hero here. And she opens up right away as soon as as everybody else is in place. They want to wait a little bit, but she can't wait. She goes ahead and starts shooting. Like I said, it's only 12 pages. And it doesn't really say to be continued. I am only assuming this might be like a primer, because then it goes into, after this last page here, looks like Hazel gets in a little trouble. It's kind of a cliffhanger. Then it goes into some art. That fills up the 15 pages on this side. So as you can see, very, very interesting art. Now let's go take a look at the other one, Interstellar Dust, is drawn by Igor Wolski, and both of them are written well too. So I'm going to recommend this, even though they don't really complete the story on either one. And this is kind of a timeline type story. Starts out in outer space. Now, there's a chance that both these stories might intertwine at some point because they are taking place. They end up taking place in the future. And they're at Earth, so I'm thinking maybe there's some connection between the two. But on this one, it starts out with a salvage guy out there, and a prison ship comes by and kind of drops their junk on him. And in turn, he's not too happy about it, and he gives them a little bird to let them know. This comic was a lot more racy than the other one, as we'll see. So this kind of continues on. You go into this inside the prison ship, and they show the different cells and what's taking place in each cell. And each cell is pretty small. It's almost like a fishbowl, like this guy's meditating. this guy's doing something. I don't know. He's some kind of alien guy. This person is taking a restroom break. This guy's going crazy and ripping everything apart. This guy's just kind of sitting there sad, and this guy's just kicking back. And I believe the story is this guy, because then it goes 26 days ago. He's lounging at his girlfriend's house, and her father comes home, so he's got a split. He gets cast out because he's on his way to, he's leaving because he's got a job to do some illegal mining, and that kind of fits in with the other story a little bit too. So they're way up high, just like the other story had the high buildings. This one's a nice high building too. So I kind of think it might be New York as well, but they never mention it. So he's got a jetpack on. He flies around. He goes to meet his illegal boss here, and they've just arrested his group, and he doesn't get away, and that's why he ended up on that prison spaceship. Okay. And then it goes into another member or inmate on this prison barge out in space, and she's got a tail, and it turns out this is her story 44 days ago, and she's a sex worker that gets arrested. I don't know if she's really guilty of anything besides providing. I'm not going to go too far into it because it gets a little bit more frontal nudity. And she has this old guy as a client, and she talks him into spending a lot of money, but then she gets busted and taken up to that spacecraft. And that's kind of how it ends. Now, the whole thing I think was done pretty nicely. I do have one major complaint besides the story's not getting far enough along. My major complaint is what they did with the center. This is the center. They could have put a nice pin-up poster or something in. You could pop out and put up on your wall. But instead, they've got this graphic right in the middle, right in the staples. And unfortunately, I mean, it's kind of to me, it's a big waste of very expensive turf here. So unfortunately, it doesn't really work for me. Now, I just wanted to make a word about Antarctic Press, because they are infamous right now for another reason too. They are part of a lawsuit going on between Richard Myers, whose book Jawbreakers was supposed to be published by Antarctic, and he ended up having to go independent, and Mark Waid, who's a writer of much renown throughout the industry for many years and has worked on, I believe, Batman, Superman, all kinds of titles that you would know. And it's alleged that Mark Waid interfered with the contract that Richard Meyer had with Antarctic Press, and Antarctic Press broke the contract. But Richard Meyer ended up putting it up on Indiegogo. He did very well there, but there is also a defamation lawsuit portion of that going on as well. So it was a couple things going on with this lawsuit. So anyway, I thought that was kind of an interesting little story on it. I don't remember ever buying anything by Antarctic Press before, but I do recommend this. I was familiar with them, but that's about it. So I must have picked up their books before and flipped through them. This does look really good. My comic shop I go to, the owner had mentioned that I had just picked up the last copy, and I got there pretty early. So I don't know how many copies he ordered, but also went online to see if there were any other reviews, and there were no other reviews. I'm assuming everybody's going to give it a positive review because it seems really good. The art in is just spectacular, and for that alone. So I recommend this. But it may split off into two separate books in the future, or it might continue in this format. I just wish it went a little bit further in the story. That would be my only complaint. And then that center panel being just this again. It's kind of a waste of good space. You could have put a poster in there or something. But that's what we have today. So I'm glad you stopped by. Please subscribe. Please leave comments. Please like it if you like this review. I've got a couple more comics coming up in the future. I've got number 1 for the Monster Men from American Mythology. Then I've really been enjoying these publications from American Mythology. And then I also have Batman 94, which I believe is a one-off. So we'll see how that goes. And I have some other things planned this week too, if I can get to them. So everybody take care of each other, be kind to everybody. I'll see you next time at the Temple of Tomes. This is Indie Comics Jones bidding adieu.